KSL FM HD2 Salt Lake City Midvale. This is 97.5. Your home for the best college football coverage in Utah is on the KSL Sports Zone. Ready? It's the first Big 12 battle for the Utes as they head to Stillwater for a showdown against Oklahoma State. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Thanks for being with us, everybody. Alex Curie. Jeremiah Jensen out today. In comes Sly. Stevenson Sylvester, nice enough to fill in on some of these Thursdays. And I love it, man. Oh, we're watching. Gosh, you know what is crazy is like the injury reports are very, very detailed in the NFL, right?
They become more important because of this fantasy football.
But all the betting and all the
people are so mad at Christian McCaffrey.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. There's always these teams. And now the 49ers. I was just looking there because George Kittle didn't practice today. He had a hamstring. They're really like they are scooting along that line, man.
Oh yeah.
They're trying to make sure they scoot along that line. We'll keep our eye on that and much more. We've got tons to jump into today. Of course, we chatted last hour a little bit about that BYU-Kansas State matchup. Now, Sly's about to get on the charter tomorrow with the team, head down to Oklahoma State. Joining us on the program right now, McClain Baxley covers the Oklahoma State Cowboys with GoPokes.com, part of the 247 network. What's going on, McClain? Thanks for being with us, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. What are we supposed to anticipate here with this Oklahoma State team? BYU fans got a little bit of a dose last year, and that's a tough place to play down there at Stillwater. Utah's brand new to this Big 12 stuff. These teams haven't played each other since 1946, I think, which doesn't mean anything because that means they just don't know each other. But it's also the two most tenured and kind of old school head coaches still in college football. How do you like this matchup between Coach Kyle Whittingham and Coach Mike Gundy?
Yeah, I'm not sure these two teams could be more similar if they tried, right? I mean, from the top down, like you said, they're both Whittingham and Gundy both in their 20th year. They both got seventh-year quarterbacks on the team. They're both teams that, are pretty balanced on offense, but they like to run the ball. They've both had success in their respective conferences. They both kind of do more with less. They're not getting, a ton of 5-star, 4-star talent, but they still are able to win a lot of games. So, very similar teams, and it should make for a great atmosphere. Boone Pickens Stadium has been sold out since the summer for this game, and every game has been sold out. But I think a lot of fans were really anxious to get season tickets this year because of this game. It's both these teams in the top three in the Big 12, expected to finish that way anyway. So it should be a really exciting one on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, what are you seeing on the defensive side of the ball for like Utah coming up against Ollie Gordon? I think that's a huge matchup. A lot of Utah fans are anticipating that. As you said, top down, very similar. I was just saying that same thing. I was just like, this game might come down to special teams, at the end of it. But with the Doak Walker winner, Ollie Gordon coming back this year, and Utah, hanging their hat on physicality as well. What are you seeing in that matchup, Oklahoma State's offense versus Utah's defense?
Yeah, so 3 games in, teams have done a pretty good job of loading the box and really limiting Ollie. The Oklahoma State offense, rushing offense, is only averaging just over 100 yards a game. He hasn't really gotten going other than the South Dakota State game when he scored in the first 2 games, but it was held. He was shut out last week against Tulsa, only held to 40-something yards against a group of 5 teams. So a lot of teams are selling out to stop him, which allows quarterback Alan Bowman to hit his receivers and go for 400 yards a game like we saw last week against Tulsa. So, against Utah, against a more veteran team, a more balanced and more talented team, I expect, there to be a little bit of a mix. I don't think they can afford to fully shut down Gordon because, Alan Bowman has shown he can get to, his stable of receivers. He's got 3 or 4 guys that all have experience now that are all very talented receivers and pass catchers. So, pretty balanced offense, and kind of pick your poison. Would you rather the Doak Walker All-American running back to beat you, or would you rather, the veteran quarterback who is kind of having a, rebirth this season of confidence and a newfound trust in his team? So there's a lot to down on offense, but there's a lot to work with.
Alan Bowman's interesting because we have seen a lot of there's a lot of Alan Bowman tape out there, and with the 3 teams he's been on, and obviously most recently I think people look at him and they were like, okay, you're the guy who hands the ball off to Ollie Gordon, but man, he's kind of broken out, and I think he's 7th in the country right now in passing, which I guess, to Oklahoma State's credit, they're like, hey, everybody's stacking the box here, so let's give Alan Bowman a shot to throw the ball, and he's been really good at it so far. So what have you seen a change in this guy, speaking of teaching old dogs new tricks?
Yeah, last year, he was still not the guy. The first 3 games, they kind of ran that 3 quarterback rotation where they were kind of cycling through. And then, from game 4 all the way through bowl season, he was starting quarterback. But, having a full year, full off season to know that you are the starting quarterback, you are the guy to really trust, work with the ones at, offensive line, work with the ones at receiver, and work with Ollie, 100% of the time, has really instilled confidence. And the other thing is just he's trusting his offensive line, trusting himself to stay in the pocket, not flush out, not throw the ball away like we saw so often last year. He had gotten into a really bad habit of throwing the ball away, maybe giving up on the plane too early, or throwing it to the wrong guy, not going through his reads, and throwing an interception. We haven't really seen that much this season. He has thrown a couple picks in these first 3 games, but for the most part, he's done a much better job of really just trusting himself, and that confidence is definitely there. 3 games, and we saw that last week against Tulsa, where he looked like his true Texas Tech form that we saw, I guess 4 or 5 years ago.
What can you tell us about this Oklahoma State Stillwater Boone Pickett Stadium atmosphere, right? Utah's first conference game here just starting this weekend. What can fans expect? I know this is an afternoon game. I was actually hoping it was a night game, but dang TV rights. But what can you tell us about this atmosphere that, Utah fans are walking into?
Yeah, I think most fans wearing orange and black were rooting for a night game. It is a lot more fun at night. But, whether we've seen a couple of 11 a.m. kickoffs, and it's still rowdy. It's still, it's the tightest sideline in Division I football. So the fans are right on top of the players, and the room from the sideline to the stands is very minimal, and you can feel that. There's the paddle people, which are in one of the end zones in front of the student section, which make a lot of noise. There's a lot of tradition, a lot of pregame, pomp and circumstance, and it's just loud, throughout the game, especially in these, rivalry conference big game atmospheres. They make it there's only 50,000 or so people there, but it sounds like a lot more. We're in the press box, and the, glass in front of us is not open press box, and we can still hear, especially on 3rd down and in the second half, for those big plays. It gets very loud, it gets very raucous. So I expect that to be the same, even though this isn't, Oklahoma, this isn't Kansas State coming in. It's a new team, as we saw it earlier. They've never seen each other, but they're still getting the same treatment as those other teams because it is, a game of big magnitude.
Utah is a team that came right out of the Pac-12 and immediately became one of the, if not the top, contenders in the Big 12, and a lot of people still have them on the list as being the ones to be the Big 12 champion. What does Utah pose in terms of a problem for Oklahoma State? What do you see teams like Utah be able to do against Oklahoma State if you were to plan against the Cowboys?
I think what the first couple teams have done against Oklahoma State has been what I would do. I think you make Alan Bowman beat you. I would trust Ollie Gordon to have a better game than Alan Bowman, and so you're going to shut him down and really just limit his carries, limit his production, and force Alan Bowman to make those throws. I don't know if he can go for 400 yards every game. Scoring 5 touchdowns through the air, hitting 4 different receivers, doing that. I don't know if he can do that every day, and against better defensive backs, against better linebackers, and against better schemes than Tulsa. I don't know if he can do that. So that's what I would do, and really just hope for the best. And then defensively, they're still it feels like every game they're kind of rebuilding. Last week against Tulsa was their first game without Colin Oliver for the first time since the 2020 season. Their defensive leader, one of the best defenders in the country, and especially in the conference. And so without him, guys are kind of having to step up. They're having to play by committee. There's not just one guy that can replace Colin Oliver. So there's 2 or 3 guys that have kind of filled in to do what he does. But it'll be interesting to see what they do Saturday against Utah. Again, it's the first time they're seeing each other ever. And so I feel like they're kind of always rebuilding each week and throwing out a different defense. But, offensively, that's what I would do. And it's gonna be fun, and something that, for Oklahoma State, it's their first big test, and first, the biggest opponent for Big 12 play is week 1. So it's going to be a big test for them.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, we've been talking about this all season, or all off season, right? And it's finally here. We're just skating through the season, already 3 games in. Very excited for this matchup. But man, I'm hearing so much. What's this restaurant you told me? Is it Eskimo Joe's?
I was trying to explain to Sly. He's
I have
going to
no
be down
idea
there.
what I'm walking into.
He just assumes that every place that everybody tells him about, Eskimo Joe's included, is overrated before he even shows up. Will you please dial it up for him?
What is this all about?
Tell him what he's got to order when he gets down there.
It is good. All right. I mean, it is. Like, I thought the same thing. I was like, cheese fries. This is what we're doing. And you walk in and there's celebrities and former presidents and all these memorabilia of famous people coming to Stillwater, Oklahoma to eat a plate of cheese fries. And so they are good, though. I mean, I get them as a meal. I put you can get different meats. You can get different toppings on them. I get mine with blackened chicken and jalapeno. I know they got this sweet peppered bacon that they put on there, and a lot of people rave about that. There's a lot of different toppings and stuff, but it is good. I've had other people in town that really enjoy it as well, and they kind of go in with the same thought, like, this is your meal. This is the Stillwater staple. It's cheese fries, but it kind of lives up to the billing. And so definitely, if you got 30, 45 minutes to wait in line and get seated, I think it is.
I don't like to wait. Dang it!
Game day weekend, the line is deep because tradition.
All these people out of Salt Lake City want to go try Eskimo Joe's. You're going to be in that line. Do the blackened chicken and the jalapenos on it.
Yeah, that
Come
actually
on, Sly.
sounded terrific.
Don't be too good for the places that are around.
Hey, man, I'll save my cheat meal for this. Sounded good.
I love how we always have to angle food into this thing. I don't know why, but that's always part of what the conversation. But hey, that's a part of what the college football atmosphere.
It really is tailgating, all that. Yeah.
Well, not just that. It's like every big city you go to, there's always a restaurant that people are like, hey, you got to go to this place. You got to see this thing. So, at McClain, one of the things that we're also trying to figure out about this team is that we feel like both teams have held out a little bit of what they do. And have you seen that a little bit, or has it just been what defenses have given them? Is Oklahoma State going to have some stuff up their sleeve? Because Sly feels like the Utah defense was being pretty vanilla the last couple of weeks.
I think offensively, yes. I think they Gundy says he has said both post game against Tulsa and then again on Monday that he feels comfortable with where the run game is. He's not concerned, and so we're all kind of curious and waiting to see what that looks like against Big 12 Power 5 defense. And I think on Saturday we're going to see that, whether that's a different blocking scheme, whether it's a different running style, and the way they more counters, more kind of running outside than we've seen these first 3 games. But I think offensively you're not going to give your whole playbook to Tulsa, South Dakota State, and Arkansas. So I'm expecting to see a little bit there, and it should be fun to see what those new kinks are. But it's also just kind of funny, for Oklahoma State, they play Utah this week, Kansas State next week. Those are the 2 big games in Big 12 play. So the second half of the season is going to be a lot more vanilla and more tame, I think. I predict than these first 2 weeks will be.
It's interesting you brought that up because I think Mike Gundy said, "Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with the scheduling guy. I'm buddies with the commissioner, but I'm not. I don't know what to do about the scheduling." Do you feel like that's? I mean, BYU fans feel a little bit like that. They've gotten some tough. They get all the tough teams, and then Utah teams like Utah and I think Kansas State who don't even face one another. That's that people look at that and go, well, that's soft. But how does Mike Gundy feel about that one? You got to beat all these teams anyway if you're going to win the conference.
I think that's the way he sees it. If you want to be the best, you've got to beat the best. And whether you could easily walk into Arlington, not play Kansas State, not play Utah. Play 9 other teams and just kind of walk into Arlington kind of untested. So when you get to Arlington, you're playing a really good Kansas State team, a really good Utah team. I think seeing what he got early on, so that if there is a slip up these next 2 weeks, whether that's a loss to Utah or a loss to K-State, you've got 7 or 8 more games to make that up and kind of get yourself back in the running. Whereas if you're just playing cream puffs, by the time you get to the Big 12 championship game, you're not as seasoned as they would like to be. So I think he's a guy that, he sees the schedule, he can gripe about it, but ultimately he's fine and he'll play whoever he needs to. So I think that's kind of the way he's looking at it. But he said that preseason when he was having to face the 2-time defending FCS national champions, and now he's saying that having to face 2 of the best teams in the conference back-to-back weeks.
McClain Baxley covers Oklahoma State for GoPokes.com. That's part of the 247 network. McClain, we appreciate it, man, and we're going to make sure that Sly goes down and gets some of that Eskimo Joe's as part of the full experience.
Hopefully it lives up to the expectation. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Appreciate it, McClain.
I'm excited.
Will you not be too good for a place's food? Don't be that guy.
I'm never too good. I just don't like to wait.
That's part of the I'm too good for you. I don't need to wait in your little line over here.
That's not it at all. I got an antsy problem. I can't sit still unless I'm doing something. So I need to be eating, waiting in line. I just get all mad.
Yeah, Eskimo Joe's. I don't think you'd think a place down in Stillwater, Oklahoma would be called Eskimo Joe's in the first place. But, yeah, it's...
I'm excited to see all of this Midwest football. Right, the Lubbock, Texas, the Stillwaters. I really want to see some of these places.
3 yards and a cloud of dust. That's the whole thing.
Flat plains.
So my father-in-law played against Oklahoma State. He played at BYU as a defensive end at BYU back in the 70s. The first time they went to the Fiesta Bowl, and then when they went to the Citrus Bowl, 74 and 76. Both bowl games. It was the biggest bowl games BYU had played in ever. And both bowl games they had to play Oklahoma State. And they got their butts handed to them in both games. Oof. I think one was maybe a little bit closer than the other, but both. I mean, like both of these games. If you look at the box score, because I went back and I was like, man, what was that like playing Oklahoma State? He goes, they ran the ball. And I was like, oh really? 67 attempts on the ground one game, and then 71 the next. They ran the ball 71 times. They'd attempt like 3 passes a game.
Is Johnny Unitas playing?
I'm telling you, it was absolutely. They was just like hand the ball off, and you know what they did? They'd run for 600 freaking yards. Like that's what they did.
Oh my gosh.
Or not 600, but it'd be like 450 on like 70 rushes because that's what they did, man. It's crazy. And there's still a little bit of that left over. I mean, there've been some guys who come in there and been, you know. I mean, Mike Gundy was a quarterback, you know, at Oklahoma State. Guess what they did when he was quarterback? He'd throw a little bit, but guess what he really did? Hand the freaking ball off to Barry Sanders.
He looked good handing it off, too. I mean, anybody, what is it, Thurman Thomas was there?
Thurman Thomas, Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders was his backup. Man.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Was that 89, 88?
88 is when Barry won the Heisman, so it's like the 2 years before that, Thurman Thomas was like. But Thurman Thomas was just as impressive.
Yes.
I mean, like, those guys were insane to watch.
The scouting report is like, I'd want to play Thurman, not the backup.
And it was like, honestly, you couldn't stop either of those guys. And they weren't big. Neither of them were big.
Right.
They just you've never seen talent like that. All right.